Today on Scripps News Live, Canada's wildfire crisis isn't over, and neither is the health risk for the United States. Thick smoke smothering cities across the upper Midwest. Severe weather impacting flight boards across the Northeast right now, leaving thousands of passengers waiting or looking for a new ride. 1 in 3 Americans admit they're hiding credit card debt from a spouse. A new survey shedding light on our secretive spending habits. Plus $1 here and 50 cents there really adds up. Have we reached the tipping point on tipping?
We are interacting for 12 seconds. This is something that's already pre-wrapped and you're kind of handing it to me through the window. Why is there a tip all of a sudden?
Why more Americans are getting fed up with gratuity. Scripps News Live begins right now. The world's most powerful military alliance says it is ready to respond in the event of aggression from Moscow or Minsk. This morning, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg confirming that NATO has boosted its military presence along its eastern flank amid concerns about the instability in Russia and Belarus. Welcome to Scripps News Live. Thank you so much for being with us on this Wednesday. Always good to see you. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. So Secretary General Stoltenberg now confirming that NATO is sending more manpower and supplies to member states that share borders with both countries. This announcement coming shortly after meeting with the leaders of 8 NATO member countries, many of whom have been expressing concerns about the security of the region following this weekend's uprising in Russia. Stoltenberg also acknowledging that the actions of the Wagner Group are adding to tensions in the Baltics, but still are saying it's still too early to know if the brief military takeover of one of Russia's largest southern cities has done permanent damage to Russia's stability.
On the Wagner forces, well, I think it's too early to draw any final conclusion. So what kind of consequences that will have. The mutiny, the events we saw are internal Russian matters. Then maybe we are following and monitoring what's going on very closely. We have seen that some of these forces may be deployed to Belarus. But again, I think it's too early to draw any final conclusions.
Meanwhile, the United States remains unwavering in its support of the Ukrainian war effort. The Pentagon announcing plans to send another $500 million in military aid to Ukraine, which will include badly needed equipment for its counteroffensive, such as 30 Bradley fighting vehicles and 25 Stryker armored personnel carriers. In the meantime, discord at home hasn't stopped the Russian military's deadly advance. Ukrainian authorities say that 10 people, including 3 children, were killed in Russian missile strikes overnight. Scripps News correspondent John Beaver is in Finland for us. He has the very latest on these major developments in the war.
Well, after days of talk about the aborted rebellion in Russia, a reminder today that there is still a war going on in Ukraine. There have been 2 deadly missile strikes in the country. 3 people have been killed in shelling in Kharkiv, and 10 have been killed in the city of Kramatorsk, where a missile hit a busy pizza restaurant. Among the dead are 14-year-old twin sisters. It would seem that Russia is reminding the world that this conflict is still going on. We've heard from NATO and the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. He said that the Ukrainian counter-offensive was going slowly, but that some progress was being made. But as we've seen from these missile strikes, innocent people are continuing to die in this war. Today is actually Ukraine's Constitution Day. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been addressing lawmakers in parliament. He's been saying things such as Ukraine will now become a global centre of courage. And he said that Ukrainians want to build a victorious Ukraine, and we will do it. Now, obviously, to help that along, they are going to need more resources. President Biden has pledged somewhere in the region of another $500 million to help with that. NATO leaders have said that they will continue their support. They've described it as unwavering support for Ukraine as well. So, as I say, after days of talk about what was going on in Russia internally, the focus now is back on Ukraine and the fact that the war there is still going on. John Beaver, Scripps News, Helsinki.
Now, the paid military mercenaries who staged this weekend's uprising in Russia are now staged in Belarus. The country's president, Alexander Lukashenko, confirming reports that he's offered troops from the Wagner Group some of his country's abandoned land. But he is denying reports that Belarus is building camps for them. Belarus's decision to offer sanctuary to the Wagner Group and its leader could create a divide between these staunch allies. Scripps News national political correspondent Alex Miller explains.
Russian President Vladimir Putin delivering a rare outdoor speech at the Kremlin. He called for a moment of silence for the military pilots the Wagner Group shot down and praised Russian soldiers for determination and courage in confronting the weekend rebellion.
You defended the constitutional order, lives, security, and freedom of our citizens, saved our motherland from upheavals, and effectively stopped a civil war. You acted clearly and harmoniously in a difficult situation.
Putin met with military service members afterward and without ever saying Yevgeny Prigozhin's name, revealed the Wagner Group was fully funded by the government, totaling about $2 billion. He suggested there could be consequences for anyone who stole from the state. In a deal to end the mutiny, Prigozhin agreed to go to Belarus. State media reports he has arrived there. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko appeared to indicate the tension between Prigozhin and Russia's defense minister had been allowed to get out of control, a rare criticism from a man whose country relies on Russian support.
The most dangerous thing, as I understand it, was not the situation itself, but how it could develop and its consequences. This was the most dangerous thing. I also understood that a cruel decision was made to eliminate Prigozhin. It sounded that way between the lines of Putin's speech. I suggested to Putin not to rush.
Lukashenko says the Wagner fighters can be accommodated at an abandoned military base. It's an offer the State Department condemns.
Everywhere that Wagner goes, death and destruction follows in their wake. He has been a destabilizing agent. And so the decision by President Lukashenko to welcome Prigozhin to Belarus, I think, is another example of him choosing the interests of Vladimir Putin and choosing the interests of the Kremlin over the interests of the Belarusian people.
Neighboring Latvia and Lithuania are so alarmed, both called on NATO to respond by strengthening its eastern borders. Alex Miller, Scripps News.
And so to come in this hour of Scripps News Live, the White House calling it Bidenomics. President Biden touting his administration's economic success in a speech this afternoon. Plus, former President Trump filing a counterclaim against the former columnist who's accused him of sexual assault and defamation. And Attorney General Merrick Garland will be facing one of his toughest critics when he testifies before the House Judiciary Committee this fall. We're back after this.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete LeafGuard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Call 800-719-8907.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and will even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Call 800-719-8907. That's 800-719-8907.
There's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. And checking your credit score or bank statements may not be enough to alert you. That's because identity threats appear in more places than you realize. Identity thieves can use your information to open loans, transfer home titles, even commit crimes.
Someone stole my information and tried to buy a car in my name.
LifeLock monitors for threats to your identity, including ones you may miss, and alerts you if there's an issue. And if you're a victim, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All plans backed by LifeLock's $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
I know LifeLock has me covered.
LifeLock, identity theft protection starts here. Call the number on your screen or visit lifelock.com/25now and use promo code 25now to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
Well, after months of maligning the Justice Department in the press, House Republicans turning up the heat on Attorney General Merrick Garland. The nation's top cop will be testifying before the House Judiciary Committee this fall, answering allegations that the DOJ's investigations are politically weaponized. When Garland appears before the committee on September 20th, he'll be facing one of his harshest critics, Committee Chair Jim Jordan of Ohio. Jordan has repeatedly alleged that the DOJ's criminal probe into former President Trump's handling of classified documents is a farce, and that Garland and his investigators are doing President Biden's bidding.
This is the most political thing I have ever seen. And the people who are doing it is the administration, the Justice Department, from his opponent in the upcoming presidential election. This is as political as it gets.
National political correspondent Kevin Cirilli is on Capitol Hill right now and has been covering this. So, Kevin, what more can you tell us about this, which in and of itself seems highly political?
This is going to be a political showdown between not just the Attorney General Merrick Garland, but also FBI Director Christopher Wray, as they come before the committee that is chaired, of course, by Jim Jordan, a conservative who is in close contact, as well as a staunch ally of former President Donald Trump. And Republicans feel that there has been a two-tier justice system in this country, and they're going to argue that there has been a weaponization of the Justice Department under Garland, particularly when they compare, for example, the indictments that have been brought against former President Trump, as well as the investigations, or what they feel to be lack thereof, into President Biden's son, Hunter Biden. So all of this comes in a heightened political time. But take a listen to what Congressman Hank Johnson of Georgia said earlier this week on Scripps News. Here he is.
In the view of some, he has gone overboard in trying to make sure that the FBI does not overstep its boundaries. And so investigations that should have taken place maybe did not take place as quickly as they should have because of, the intimidation.
Something to watch is whether or not the conservative calls to impeach the Attorney General grow louder leading up to this hearing, as well as in the immediate aftermath of that hearing. There's been some debate amongst Republicans that whether or not Republicans should try to organize an impeachment against Garland or even President Biden. And that debate has kind of been torn open this week in Washington over some reports that the Freedom Caucus, the conservative caucus in the House, has trying to remove Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene from its ranks because she has struck a deal with Speaker McCarthy as it relates to this type of what should be the precedent and what should be the top of the priority list. So a lot of back and forth that's interesting, but this getting scheduled, I think, is only going to further underscore just how important this hearing is going to be for the Republican conference come the fall.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I want to go ahead and switch gears for a second, Kevin, and kind of lean into your economic expertise, because I know you've been covering financial news for quite some time now, and get your take on Bidenomics, which is what the White House is going to be rolling out at noon Eastern today. Now, essentially what the president is going to say is that the United States has recovered quite well in comparison to other countries when it comes to the pandemic. What has the economic data shown you?
Well, look, I think when you look at you and I have talked about this, when you look at inflation in the United States compared to other countries, the U.S. actually has a lower inflation rate than compared with, say, the United Kingdom, for example. Separately from that, when you look at unemployment, which is still quite low as it relates, again, to other countries, the United States can be proud of how it has economically recovered from the pandemic, comparatively speaking, to other countries. That said, this is also a political season. Biden's running for re-election. And so the Republicans are going to attack Bidenomics, as it's known. And when you look at one of the strongest political polling attributes to former President Trump, specifically amongst key swing voters, the economy typically ranks high for Republicans, and in this case, former President Trump, who's leading in the polls. So for this is an effort on behalf of the White House to really try to claim back some of the swing voters as it relates to the economy. Whether or not it works, we'll have to see. But this is a really an effort to do that at a time in which the economy, we can compare it geopolitically all we want, but all pocketbook issues are deeply personal, and many folks, feel left behind right now. And so this is on behalf of the administration trying to win some of that back. But this is political. I mean, he's running for re-election.
Yeah, people do tend to vote with their pocketbooks, like you were just saying. Kevin's really live for us on Capitol Hill. Kevin, thank you so much. So former President Trump filing a counterclaim against author E. Jean Carroll. Trump claiming that Carroll defamed him when she went on CNN May 10th and accused him of raping her. That was one day after a jury found that he did not rape her, but instead sexually abused her. Trump's counterclaim is a response to Carroll's second defamation lawsuit. And in that suit, Carroll says that Trump made derogatory comments about her appearance and claimed that she lied about the rape allegation. A New York federal judge has hinted that he is not likely to move the former president's hush money case to federal court. After hearing evidence for nearly 3 hours yesterday, the judge promised a written ruling within 2 weeks. Prosecutors argue Trump falsified business records to hide $130,000 in hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. Trump's lawyers want the case moved to federal court, and prosecutors say writing personal checks doesn't fall under official presidential duties. In a separate New York City courtroom, a judge dismissed Ivanka Trump as a defendant in another case. The New York Attorney General is suing the former president, the Trump Organization, and Trump's 3 adult children. The court ruled the statute of limitations had expired regarding charges against Ivanka Trump. She left the Trump Organization to advise her father in the White House in 2017. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, severe weather making a mess right now on those flight boards across the Northeast, just ahead of the holiday weekend, when thousands of flight delays and cancellations could clear up. Also, smoke from hundreds of wildfires still burning in Canada, now sweeping the Midwest. What we know about the cold front that could push clean air into the area as soon as tonight. That's next.
A better banking app is right at your fingertips. Download Dave, and you can get up to $500 instantly, right through your phone. There's no interest, no credit checks, and no late fees. Because getting help shouldn't set you back. Ditch the big banks and trust the bear to get up to $500 instantly. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com today.
That's $78.29.
Oh, I've only got $50. Take out the cheese puffs and the broccoli. I mean, who likes broccoli?
I don't. Only $22.87 to go.
It would be faster with the Empower app. Empower Cash Advance gives you up to $250 instantly. No late fees, interest, or credit checks.
I've got money. Keep the cheese puffs, but leave out the broccoli.
Get Empower Cash Advance up to $250 instantly. Download the Empower app today.
I have, over my 30 years, seen many patients who have excessive sweating. It is very much a confidence killer. Excessive sweating is not something you have to live with. I recommend Carpe for my patients.
Carpe is by far the most effective antiperspirant I've ever used.
I love Carpe.
Now I don't sweat.
Effective and affordable. It's a game changer.
Avoid expensive treatments, injections, and prescriptions. Your total body sweat solution is available at mycarpe.com. Visit today and get free shipping.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com.
Get customizable furniture at joybird.com that complements your art, your green thumb, or just you. Save up to 45% off select bestsellers. Plus, get free design services at joybird.com.
The Athletic. Subscribe today.
What should we do?
I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, we can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need.
There's a better way to begin your mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Morning Rush. Thanks so much for being with us.
Context and conversation.
There's a new study that might make you feel a little bit better. Okay. So listen to this.
On the stories that will shape each day.
Here with us now is meteorologist Scott Withers. You got just wave after wave after wave.
So you can get on with yours.
Make sure you stay with us as we monitor this developing story.
Morning Rush. Weekday mornings starting at 7, 6 Central. Only on Scripps News.
At this hour, thick smoke from the 490 active wildfires still burning across Canada, now smothering parts of the upper Midwest. This is what conditions look like in Milwaukee, Detroit, and Dayton. Take a look. The EPA is saying this region has the worst air quality in the United States right now, categorizing it as hazardous. Local governments are warning people to stay indoors if possible. But relief from all of that irritating smoke could be on the way. We're tracking a cold front right now that could sweep into the Midwest with clean air as soon as tonight. Scripps News meteorologist Scott Withers has the details for us.
Hazardous air quality alerts stretching across the Great Lakes as the smoke from those out-of-control Canadian fires blankets the region. Chicago, Detroit, Minneapolis, shrouded in smoke. Right now, the ranking, second, third, and fourth out of the entire planet in those cities right now. The smoke making it hard to see throughout. That's Wisconsin. Driving conditions difficult in Milwaukee and Kentucky. Let's show a live picture here from right here live. That is Cincinnati. You cannot see barely across the Ohio River Valley there into the city. Very difficult to see there. It's improving a little bit from a few hours ago, but it is not, should not look like that. Now, there are almost 500 fires burning across Canada. You can see here, half of them still out of control, and that's that smoke coming down, that light gray there, coming down Wisconsin into Illinois, wrapping back around. More than 19 million acres have burned up there in Canada, and that's just going to continue because there's no signs of any of those wildfires really ending, and the smoke and the bad air, well, it's just going to keep impacting us all summer long. Air quality alerts are going to be in place in a dozen states today and tomorrow, but it's really just the start of our weather woes because you know what? We've got a scorching heat wave as well, and it's expanding and intensifying. Now the deep south and mid-Mississippi River Valley are joining the southwest and the Gulf Coast. The real temperatures will be in the upper 90s and going to hit 100 by the weekend in places like Memphis, Tennessee, where it's going to feel like 115 today. All right, on the national satellite, you can see we got that high pressure dome. We've been talking about this for a week and a half now over Texas. It's stretched across the Gulf Coast, but now it's also going up the Mississippi River Valley, Tennessee, Kentucky, into the Ohio River Valley. All of that is going to be hot, hot, hot. There is going to be some smoke relief, though. This is good news. You can see this system up here blowing across Minnesota. It's going to go into Wisconsin. It's going to blow some of that smoke out. That's good news. But as it does that, we're going to have some strong, powerful storms with hail in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and into western parts of Wisconsin. It's where we see our severe weather alerts. You can see right there, yellow on your map, the gray. Those are all the air quality alerts due to that smoke and ground level ozone. And then the brutal heat across the south. Look at that. Most of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, all of Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And another heat dome out there on the West Coast building right now in California. If you're dealing with either the heat or the smoke, try to stay indoors in the air conditioning, drink lots of water, and please check on senior neighbors and those outdoor animals and pets. They need water and shade too.
Now, if you plan to fly for the 4th of July holiday, You want to be prepared to pack that patience, because data from FlightAware shows that more than 1,500 flights within, into, or out of the United States have been delayed or even canceled today. And that adds to the more than 9,000 flight disruptions yesterday. Airlines say it's due to severe weather, but the FAA is also taking some blame after it cut arrival and departure rates on Saturday. Some travelers are saying that's how long it's been since their flights have been delayed.
So I'm traveling to Maine for a work trip, and unfortunately every flight just there has been delayed. I don't even have my luggage. It's been over 2 days and I still haven't even seen Maine. You know what I mean? And I was supposed to leave on Saturday. So it's just been delay after delay. My flight got canceled yesterday and it was delayed for over 5 hours. So we were just sitting on the plane. It's been ridiculous, honestly.
Staffing issues prompting the FAA to cut flights. Still, the agency projects holiday air travel will peak tomorrow. And scorching temperatures are expected to expand to other parts of the United States as well. The National Weather Service reporting more than 56 million people are under heat advisories. Record heat has been stressing the Texas power grid for days now, with Dallas and San Antonio experiencing triple-digit temperatures. And the heat wave in Texas is posing a severe risk to prisoners. At least 5 inmates reportedly died this month alone. The most recent was last Friday after officials say a 35-year-old suffered from a cardiac arrest. The state's Department of Criminal Justice has yet to declare if the heat played a role, but data shows that more than 2/3 of Texas's prisons lack air conditioning. Democratic lawmaker Terry Canales has been trying to address the issue for years and says the recent deaths during the heat wave aren't a coincidence. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Don't forget to check us out on scripsnews.com. And for the audience leaving us, your local programming is up next. And if you're staying with us, here's what's straight ahead. Secretive spending habits. A new survey out shows that 1 in 3 Americans are admitting that they hide their credit card debt from a spouse. Plus, $1 here, 50 cents there. Well, it really adds up. Have we reached the tipping point when it comes to tipping? Why more and more people are getting fed up with gratuity? We'll have that story for you next.
I've been putting off getting life insurance, and I'm not getting any younger.
Have you been thinking about getting a life insurance plan but just keep putting it off? Was that a yes? Then this message is for you. I'm David Denowitz, and I know the importance of life insurance. And that's why I'm here to tell you it's not too late to get the coverage you need.
If you're between the ages of 45 and 85, you can get a policy with a benefit of up to $25,000 and rates available at $5 a week. The phone lines are now open. Just call 800-354-6059.
And your acceptance is guaranteed.
I have a pre-existing medical condition. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes.
Can I get accepted without a medical exam?
Yes. If you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down for this guaranteed acceptance life insurance regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions, and rates start at just $5 a week. Remember, if you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down regardless of your health. Nothing's more important than family. So call now, pick up the phone, and get guaranteed acceptance life insurance today.
Just call 800-354-6059.
I'm 72 and on a fixed income. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes, your acceptance is guaranteed and your rate can never go up for any reason. You can't be turned down regardless of your health. There's just one simple question. Are you between 45 and 85? If you answered yes, don't wait another minute. Call now.
The call is absolutely free, and there is no obligation to enroll. Just call 800-354-6059. That's 800-354-6059.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. It's great to see you on this Wednesday. Time now to get you up to speed on the biggest stories that we're tracking for you right now. At 1 p.m. Eastern today, President Biden will be touting his administration's economic success at a speech in Chicago. The White House dubbing this initiative, quote, Bidenomics. In today's address, the president is expected to outline his plans to boost the financial health of the middle class. At 1:15 p.m. Eastern, Principal Deputy Spokesperson Vendant Patel will be holding a briefing at the State Department. We do expect to hear from the administration on a number of pressing topics, from its response to this weekend's uprising in Russia to the state of strained U.S. relations with China. And then at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin will be welcoming Germany's federal minister to the Pentagon. The war in Ukraine will be at the forefront of this bilateral meeting, and in particular, ways Germany can help support and secure NATO's eastern flank right now. A new government report shows more than $200 billion meant to help struggling businesses during the pandemic may have been stolen. The Small Business Administration releasing its numbers yesterday, citing fraud as the main issue. The Inspector General believes possible fraudulent actors stole $136 billion from the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, $64 billion from the Paycheck Protection Program, which accounts for at least 17% of the program's revenue. Scripps News correspondents have more on this report and how the government has been responding. Take a look.
It's money that was supposed to be used to help struggling Americans keep their businesses afloat during the pandemic, but the report states it was the allure of easy money that drew fraudsters to the programs. So in the report released Tuesday, it's estimated that at least 17% of the $1.2 trillion doled out by the Small Business Administration was stolen by fraudulent pandemic claims. That is an estimated $200 billion loss of federal funds, perhaps the largest amount of money ever lost by a government program. So during the initial rollout in 2020, Inspector General of the SBA, Mike Ware, noted the importance of dependable internal controls within the SBA in order to really mitigate the risk of some of this fraud. But the new report details, quote, in the rush to swiftly disperse COVID economic injury and disaster loans and PPP loans, the agency weakened or removed the controls necessary to prevent fraudsters from easily gaining access to these programs. Chairman of the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee recently telling ABC News he agrees.
A decision was made at the outset of the pandemic. Speed was the key. We're going to send the money out. We're not going to vet people. That was a bad choice.
Turning out to be a bad choice and a big mistake. Depending on which report you look at, the numbers could be even higher. A recent investigation by the Associated Press found that they estimate more than $280 billion in losses. But a senior advisor with the White House said they believe it's actually lower than that, saying, quote, significantly under $100 billion, perhaps around $40 billion, still a pretty high number. The report also stating, as of last month, oversight has led to more than 1,100 indictments, 803 arrests, and more than 500 convictions, again, all stemming from pandemic-related fraud. It's good to see some people at least kind of getting justice here. A lot of those fraudsters, came from here in this country, but a lot of folks overseas actually took advantage of these programs as well. The report also indicates some of that money has been recovered between the SBA and federal investigators. They've been able to get back about $30 billion. Mara Sirianni, Scripps News, Atlanta.
A nonpartisan research group predicts much of the country's $1.8 trillion in student loans will never be repaid. The Jane Family Institute studied the credit reports of 1 million people ages 18 to 35 who have student debt balances and said that wages haven't kept up with higher education costs. And when payments resume, delinquencies and defaults will increase. Student loan debt payments are scheduled to resume in October. Other new studies digging deeper into U.S. credit card debt in the meantime. Wallet Hub estimating the average American carries about $10,000 in credit card debt. Another study found a third of married Americans with credit card debt haven't even told their spouses what they owe. 2 in 5 said it was okay to have a credit card that their spouse doesn't know about. And then the same percentage said that they lied or withheld financial information from their other half. With high interest rates making borrowing even more expensive right now, your credit score is more important now than ever. A Lending Tree study found that raising your score from fair to very good could actually save you about $50,000 in the course of a lifetime of loans. Financial contributor and consultant Erica Blair McGrew told Morning Rush the #1 thing to do is to pay your bills on time.
So that payment history is going to be the thing that is going to negatively affect or positively affect your credit score. The other thing is public records. Some people don't think about like bankruptcies, foreclosures, tax liens, and things such as that. That's going to affect your credit as well.
So let's say you fall in hard financial times, you miss a few bills, and your credit score tanks a little bit. What are the consequences of that?
Well, the consequences, of course, is that your credit score is going to go down. But there is some saving grace. You can do things to get that credit score back up. So the first thing you want to do is you want to call up the creditor that you missed your payment with. See if you can negotiate with them to perhaps pay the bill up to date and see if they will put you back in good standing with the credit bureau. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But you want to start paying those bills on time so that you can start establishing a good credit record again. And you want to keep your credit card balances ideally below 30%. So if you have a credit line of $1,000, then you want to keep that credit line balance below $300. So that's 30% in order to start raising your credit. And then, of course, you want to start paying down those bills as much as possible. Now, don't pay them all off and close the account because that can affect something called your credit utilization. So you want to be real careful to keep the credit cards open, keep them down below 30%, and make sure you're paying them on time.
Let's say you do all that, you get a pretty good credit score, and you're looking to buy a home or a new car and looking to get financing. Talk about how much you can save by doing that.
Absolutely. So you touched on it earlier that if you have bad credit, then you're going to pay higher interest rates, which means a higher payment. So let's say if you're getting a car loan and you have a above 700 credit score, you could pay maybe $350 a month. That same car with a lower credit score and a higher interest rate, you could pay maybe $400 per month. So over the life of the loan, you can end up paying thousands of dollars or more because your credit score is lower. So it's very important to try to keep that credit score as high as possible, and you want to aim for 700 or above.
Yeah, that $50, that's an extra bill per month. Let's talk
Absolutely.
about the providers here. Between FICO, there's Vantage, there's TransUnion, a bunch of different credit agencies out there. What number is the most important one out of those three or others?
The FICO score is the most important number. So there's 3 credit bureaus. They are Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. They all report to get your credit score number. So like you said, there's the Vantage scores number, but the FICO score is the one that everyone uses. So you want to monitor your credit, and you can monitor all 3 of those credit bureaus by going to annualcreditreport.com. And then you can also monitor your credit score by going to myfico.com. And it gives you the different credit scores that each type of lender uses. So it's going to give you your overall FICO score. It'll give you your mortgage FICO score, and it also give you your auto FICO score. Because what happens is in the industry, every type of lender is using a different score. So it's important that you're monitoring the correct score for the purchase that you're trying to make. And again, to view the credit reports from TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax, you're going to go to annualcreditreport.com. And to view your FICO score, you go to myfico.com.
And that was financial contributor and consultant Erica Blair McGrew there as a special guest this morning. So cold hard cash, it's quickly becoming a thing of the past, right? According to MoneyZine, experts expect that cash transactions to account for only 10% of all transactions by the year 2025. So it's definitely falling there. But just as credit cards have transformed spending, they've also transformed tipping. because tip prompts are now common for credit card transactions at everything from coffee shops to online clothing retailers. And now shoppers are saying that they are feeling tipped out. That automatic request for gratuity feels less like a reward for great service and more like a stick-up. Zach Crenshaw with Scripps News Phoenix has more.
Jordan Boobin has been running a dog daycare business from his Phoenix home since 2017.
You're my dog sitter, essentially.
Yeah. It's a pleasure and a privilege.
It is, vice versa.
Good pups, come here.
In Jordan's booking and payment app, there's an option to tip.
Why?
Partly it's built into the app. Also, I suppose we're providing a very personal service by looking after someone's dogs.
But Jordan says he's noticed not every tipping exchange involves personal service.
I'm always surprised when I have tips at drive-thrus. When I pull up and I'm like, we are interacting for 12 seconds. This is something that's already pre-wrapped and you're kind of handing it to me through the window. Why is there a tip all of a sudden?
He's far from the only Arizonan perplexed by the proliferation.
It kind of feels extortionary, you know, they're demanding tips when they haven't done anything.
This wasn't like an interpersonal exchange. This was just to grab a product, but now there's the option. So yeah, that feels like extra.
The recent rise in tipping has a lot to do with technology.
It's the software doing it.
We were not accustomed to that 3 or 4 years ago.
Steve Chukri is president and CEO of the Arizona Restaurant Association, an industry where tipping has long been a norm. Even he says,
tipping has got out of hand, and let's make no mistake about it. The restaurant industry believes that tips should be earned. They're not an entitlement.
And many people we talked with say they feel anxious when faced with the unexpected option.
I feel like I should tip or they're going to be mad at me.
Sometimes you feel pressure, you know, when they flip the iPad.
If I'm asked to tip before I get any service done, it makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
We are driven by social pressures that influence the way we think.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Emily Basha says there are ways to combat that uneasy feeling.
So much of it is covert. So if people really consider this and spend time thinking about it, well, what behaviors do I want to reinforce? How much am I willing to give? And when do I want to give it?
Let's get real. When you go and you get a bottle of water out of a cooler, you're going to pay for it. Is a tip really necessary? No. Over time, the public's going to say, enough is enough.
What do you think, Chico?
Jordan wishes the whole practice wasn't necessary.
If everybody was making enough money, we wouldn't have to worry about it.
But he believes that tipping technology is here to stay.
I think barring some larger social change, it is going to be how things function for the near future.
Now, Dr. Basha told me businesses are constantly assessing customer behavior. So every time you tip or don't tip, entire industries are taking note. And that is ultimately what could lead to a change in tipping moving forward. I'm Zach Crenshaw for Scripps News.
All right, if you are a Costco member or you just pretend to be one, then you want to listen up because Costco is looking to curb its membership sharing. The wholesale club is now going to require people using self-checkout to show an employee their membership card. A spokesperson says membership fees give them the ability to offer lower prices. New signs posted at Costco stores will remind their members that their memberships are not transferable. Now, this just into Scripps News Live. Debris from the wreckage of the Titan submersible has just been returned to land. And what remains of the vessel, which the Coast Guard says suffered a catastrophic implosion, has arrived at a port in St. John's, Newfoundland. A remote operated vehicle pulled chunks of the 22-foot vessel from the 12,000 foot below the ocean surface area. The company which operates that vehicle says it's completed its work regarding the search. The U.S. Coast Guard has launched its highest level investigation into the implosion of the Titan submersible. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, a top NASCAR driver pulling out of this weekend's Cup Series race after his wife and his family is shattered by gun violence. But first, the Justice Department has opened a civil rights investigation into stunning police brutality allegations from 2 Mississippi men. We'll have the details. Also, we would like to hear from you. Please give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline toll free. That number's on your screen. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas. We'll be right back.
This year, Americans will spend $41 billion on auto repairs.
That's right, billions with a B. Why is that number so high? Because cars break down.
Your vehicle is going to end up in a shop like this too, and if it's no longer under warranty, you're the one who has to pay the bill, and it could cost you thousands of dollars. That is, unless you call CarShield. With a plan through CarShield, administrators will pay for those costly repairs directly to the mechanic of your choice, including dealerships. That means you get protection on major parts and systems like the engine, transmission, electrical systems, and more. Plus, 24/7 emergency services for flat or damaged tires, lockouts, dead batteries, and towing at no additional cost. And there are even rental car options to keep you on the road.
I've been a mechanic for 35 plus years now. I've seen thousands of repairs over the years. My happiest customers are the ones that come in do have some kind of auto protection policy that's going to cover the repair that they wasn't expecting anyway. I feel great about recommending CarShield to everybody I see.
CarShield has a rich history of dependability, reliability, and success, and has been featured on leading networks like ABC, CNN, Fox News, and more. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company.
My mom told me to call CarShield, and I saved $5,000. You should always listen to your mom.
As soon as my car broke down, CarShield jumped into action, and I had my car back within days.
I've been with CarShield for close to 7 years. I have 3 vehicles covered, and I saved close to $9,000.
I called CarShield and saved over $5,000.
Yes, CarShield is a good value. Every plan through CarShield comes with a price lock guarantee, which means no matter how many repairs you need, the price you pay today will never change for as long as you cover your car.
Call now and save money with your price lock guarantee. It's not a matter of if your car will break down, but when. Call CarShield now before it's too late. Call 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264.
How does Klein Inspector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Inspector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Inspector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Inspector.
I don't get paid until next week.
I got you. I'm Dave, and I can spot you up to $500 of your future money instantly.
Up to $500 instantly? What else is in my future?
A new couch. Only!
Get up to $500 instantly with Dave. Digging deeper into the headlines.
We have some big stories to get to tonight.
Shedding light on groundbreaking investigations and ending your night with something new.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Christian Bryant.
Scripps News Tonight, live tonight, starting at 8/7 Central.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Developing right now, the Justice Department opening a civil rights investigation into a stunning claim of police brutality in Mississippi. Michael Jenkins is one of 2 black men who allege 5 Rankin County Sheriff's deputies forced their way into a home where they were staying back in January and then beat them, used a stun gun on them, and then even sexually assaulted them. The sheriff of Rankin County, Brian Bailey, says the deputies involved in this shocking complaint have been fired or have voluntarily resigned. Scripps News national correspondent Tammy Eswick has more on this story, and a warning right here: you might find the details disturbing.
This is a horrendous case. Jackson, Mississippi, right next door. It's a majority black city, in Rankin County, right there. In this case, Sheriff Brian Bailey now saying that he has fired several deputies involved in what is turning out to be an alleged case of police brutality against citizens, assaulting allegedly 2 black men. One of the victims says that deputies stuck a gun in his mouth. Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey announced the firings Tuesday, though he's not naming names, so we don't know exactly the names of those deputies. 2 men, however, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, said that last January, 6 deputies burst into their home, and they said that for 90 minutes, the deputies beat them, tased them, and assaulted them with a sex toy. Jenkins was left with injuries to his face, tongue, and jaw after the deputy, he claims, shoved a gun in his mouth. Now, in a statement, Sheriff Brian Bailey said, quote, "We understand that the alleged actions of these deputies has eroded the public trust. Rest assured that we will work diligently to restore that trust." Now, earlier this year, authorities had claimed that someone had pointed a gun at deputies during a raid at the house. The firings come after an investigation by the Associated Press that found that some of the deputies involved in this case were also linked to 4 other incidents of violence against Black men since 2019. Now, those encounters left at least 2 people dead. Justice Department says it is investigating the Sheriff's Department with its Civil Rights Division and working with the FBI to get to the bottom of this alleged abuse case. Now, we can tell you that that federal investigation started in February. And a lot of times when the federal government gets involved in these cases, something called a consent decree happens. And that basically gives the feds jurisdiction and oversight of those police departments. Back to you guys.
And that was Tammy Eswick reporting for us there. Tammy, thank you so much. We are still waiting to hear how authorities believe that British actor Julian Sands died. The 65-year-old disappeared in January while hiking on a mountain. Hikers found his remains on Saturday after multiple search and rescue efforts. Sands is known for his roles in the films Boxing Helena and Leaving Las Vegas. Now to Oklahoma, where an investigation is underway in the shooting deaths of NASCAR star Jimmy Johnson's relatives. Police say Johnson's wife's parents and an 11-year-old nephew were all found dead Monday at a home in Muskogee. Investigators believe that Johnson's mother-in-law, Terry Janway, shot and killed her husband and the 11-year-old nephew before turning the gun on herself. Johnson withdrew from a race scheduled for Sunday and requested privacy during this difficult time. And in Florida, deputies are confirming the death of former NFL quarterback Ryan Mallett. The Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office says that Mallett died yesterday after drowning at a beach in Destin, Florida. He played 5 seasons in the NFL before retiring from the league in 2017. Mallett then went on to coach high school football in his home state of Arkansas when he was 35 years old. Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, a warm weather warning that every dog lover out there needs to hear right now.
If you cannot catch it in time, there's nothing that can help a dog come back from that at that point.
Heartworm infections booming right now as the mosquito population explodes. We'll have that story for you next.
If you have this, and you get this, you could end up with this. Unexpected out-of-pocket costs, which for those on Medicare or soon to be, is a good reason to take charge of your health care. So consider this, an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan from United Healthcare. Why? Because Medicare alone doesn't pay for everything. And what it doesn't pay for, like deductibles and copays, could really add up, even thousands of dollars a year. Medicare supplement plans help by paying some of what Medicare doesn't and making your out-of-pocket costs a lot more predictable. Call United Healthcare today and ask for your free decision guide. Learn more about plan options and rates to fit your needs. Now, if you like this, greater freedom, you'll love that Medicare supplement plans have no networks and no referrals needed. See any doctor, any specialist, anywhere in the U.S., as long as they accept Medicare patients. These types of plans also give you more flexibility when traveling in the U.S. Your plan goes with you, anywhere you go in the country. Even better, these are the only plans of their kind, endorsed by AARP. Call United Healthcare today for your free decision guide. So if you have this and want less out-of-pocket costs and more peace of mind, consider adding this, an AARP Medicare Supplement Plan. Take charge of your healthcare today. Just use this or this to call United Healthcare about an AARP Medicare Supplement Plan.
One way to avoid expensive car repair bills is to be a race car driver. The other is Endurance.
Endurance saved me more than $7,000.
Without Endurance, breakdowns can cost thousands. With Endurance, you're covered.
Endurance covers nearly every car on the road. Plus,
you pick the mechanic you trust.
Act now for $300 off any plan, plus a year of elite benefits and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call 1-855-588-2580 now.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy. where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
For over 100 years, this light has shined. A beacon of the free American press.
Reporting from Ukraine, Scripps News.
And now, this light shines even brighter. Scripps News.
Hey there, thank you so much for joining us for Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. So if you've been outside for any length of time recently, you probably have realized that it is, yes, mosquito season. And unfortunately, there is an added risk for your dog. Joel Lopez from Scripps News West Palm Beach says that mosquitoes can also infect man's best friend with heartworm disease. So you want to pay attention.
Playing at City Paws near Howard Park.
It's getting bit. Like, they were all over my legs. I was like, oh no.
Tasia Ned and her dog Weenie Mae
Can't even go out in the park without them bothering you.
dodge mosquitoes
It's like nothing you do keeps them away.
that have been known to infect dogs with the potentially deadly parasite heartworm.
It takes one mosquito bite to have your dog become infected with heartworm disease.
Ashley Miller with Muddy Paws Rescue says this time last year, they treated 15 dogs that had heartworm. So far this year, that number has doubled to nearly 30.
If you cannot catch it in time, then you're looking at chronic heart failure. That's end stages. There's nothing that can help a dog come back from that at that point.
Let's go get it. Let's go get it.
No, it was not an easy process at all.
Danielle Stumpf with her dog Luna says her son adopted a dog that was diagnosed with heartworm and went through the intense treatment.
It just kind of drained the dog and was not very active at all during that treatment time.
She says the dog thankfully recovered.
It's unfortunate because, you know, he rescued it and it was a good, loving home, but couldn't really take it on walks and stuff like that it really needed to.
Miller says that there is no trick to keeping mosquitoes away from your dogs, but that heartworm is preventable through yearly vet screenings and preventative medicine. Reporting in Palm Beach County, Joel Lopez for Scripps News.
I just lost the script. All right, now take a look at this video that we're about to show you. This is video of 28-year-old chimpanzee named Vanilla experiencing life outdoors for the very first time. Oh, so cute. That's Dwight right there, the alpha male, greeting Vanilla with a really big hug as Vanilla gazes in wonder at the sky at a private animal sanctuary in Fort Pierce, Florida. Now, Vanilla came from a now closed research laboratory in New York where animals lived in small cages. The Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont Stakes feature the country's premier 3-year-old racehorses. But if you wanted to see 73 and 83-year-olds, you needed to be at Emerald Downs in Auburn, Washington last Sunday. Around 24 grandparents, well, they burst from the starting gates and ran 40 yards or so. A man from Washington took home the win. In just a few minutes from now, President Biden will be speaking at a campaign event in Chicago where he is expected to tout his administration's economic success. We're going to have complete coverage for you in your next hour of Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Don't go too far. Thank you so much for being with us. Again, you're watching Scripps News Live, and we will be right back.
I can't afford this. Yeah, you can. Who are you? I'm you from the future, and I just got paid.
And I'm Dave. I can get you up to $500 of your future money now.
$500 instantly?
Instantly.
Awesome. And why are we naked?
Oh, after this, you're gonna check into a nudist resort.
They have free Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm, and volleyball.
Cool.
Download Dave and get up to $500 instantly. No interest, no credit check.
I got the groceries.
You were just supposed to get diapers.
Couldn't find them.
Well, you found your favorite cereal. Go back.
Can't. We're kinda broke until payday.
Well, diapers kinda can't wait. I'm getting the Empower app. Empower Cash Advance gives me up to $250 instantly. No late fees, interest, or credit checks.
Hurry back.
No guarantees. Diapers are so hard to find.
Get Empower Cash Advance up to $250 instantly. Download the Empower app today.
I work at Lumi Deodorant, and I'm going to tell you how to get the best deal on Lumi. It's the starter pack. You pick 2 full-size deodorants, and you get 2 mystery items for free and free shipping. So now's your chance to try Lumi Whole Body Deodorant with 72 hours of odor control.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe.
with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com.
How does Klein Spector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Spector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Spector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Spector.
President Biden landing in Chicago, where he is hoping to convince American voters in the Windy City that the economy is thriving. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. It is now 1 p.m. in the East, 10 a.m. out West. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you today. President Biden will be touting his Bidenomics plan, and he's going to be breaking down how his economic plan has been working since he entered office, despite a pandemic and severe supply chain issue. The economy has been a weak spot for the president among voters, and many are blaming him for soaring inflation and gas prices. Getting right out to White House correspondent Haley Bull, who is live for us in Washington, and she is tracking the president today. Haley, tell us more about what he's expected to say. What is Bidenomics?
Veronica, the White House is really adopting this term Bidenomics to tout the president's economic agenda. Now, the president says it was a term initially heard in the press, but it's certainly one that the administration is leaning heavily into as it kicks off the second round of the Investing in America tour. Now, this isn't really a new policy announcement, but more so an effort to double down and argue that the president's policies are leading to progress. And that centers around his economic vision of growing the economy from the middle out, bottom up, and really marks a break with what he terms trickle down economics. Now, this is built around, the White House says, a few pillars. Investing at home, which comes into play when you look at the president's policies on manufacturing, clean energy, and infrastructure focuses. It focuses on educating workers and creating competition through some of the landmark legislative pieces we have seen under the Biden administration. Now, when the administration argues that this is leading to progress, they're looking at economic markers like job growth, like the unemployment rate, cooling inflation, and compare this to the post-pandemic recovery from other major economies. But the White House still deals with questions about a recession, and that's something the president takes a more optimistic view on. Listen.
Let me put it this way. I've been hearing every month it's going to be a recession next month. The consensus is 2/3 of the economists and the major leaders in the banks think we're not going to have a recession. I don't think we will either, but I tell you one thing. In addition to the prices that go into counting what a recession constitutes, we're bringing down prices across the board for people. That's what I'm going to be talking about today.
And the president making this speech in Chicago, Veronica, which one political expert points out to me is sandwiched between some battleground areas there. So certainly key with 2024 in the backdrop of all of this.
A couple questions for you right here, Haley. Where does inflation and unemployment stand in all of this? And how do Americans feel about the job that the president is doing on the economy?
Well, this is where there is still a challenge for the president, despite the White House view that Americans have a favorable opinion on his specific policies and his specific legislation. Polling still shows less favorable views on how the president is handling the economy. You can see right there in a recent poll that more respondents disapproved than approved of his job on the economy. And we know this is one of the top issues for voters. And it's also a topic that Republicans frequently look to criticize the president on, instead pointing to higher inflation and job loss in their critiques of the president. The RNC chair stating today, quote, "Americans are worse off under Biden. Savings, real wages, and economic confidence payments are all down while prices continue to skyrocket and hardworking Americans pay the price for failed Bidenomics. Voters don't want Biden to finish the job and will make that clear in 2024. And keep in mind, one of the objectives in this speech and in this tour is contrasting the president's policy with that of Republicans. And he's been very clear in the difference between his policies and what he views as trickle-down economics, trying to really create a break from that and delineate the two visions there, Veronica.
All right, Haley Bull reporting live from Washington. Haley will be watching his speech as well. Thank you so much. Right now, there is a mixed bag on Wall Street with the Dow down. The NASDAQ was up shortly or just briefly, but it has now dropped down into the red. We're looking at 3 indices in the red right now. The Dow is down 143 points. S&P is down 10, and the NASDAQ has dropped slightly below the threshold, losing about 3 points. Again, we're going to keep an eye on it for you. Now, this is all followed the Federal Reserve Chairman saying at a forum that he could see more interest rate hikes in the future. In other news at this hour, we're looking at Attorney General Merrick Garland, who's going to be testifying before the House Judiciary Committee in the fall, and he's going to be answering to allegations that the Justice Department's investigations are politically weaponized. National political correspondent Kevin Cirilli has more on what we could see happen when Garland appears before that committee.
House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan will hear testimony before the committee from Attorney General Merrick Garland this September. Republicans argue that there's been a weaponization of the Justice Department as well as a two-tier justice system in the United States under Garland's tenure. It comes as former President Donald Trump has been indicted. It also comes as Republicans argue that that level of justice has not been applied to President Biden's son, Hunter. Take a listen to what Congressman Hank Johnson said earlier this week on Scripps News.
In the view of some, he has gone overboard in trying to make sure that the FBI does not overstep its boundaries. And so investigations that should have taken place maybe did not take place as quickly as they should have because of, the intimidation.
Some Republicans have called for Garland's impeachment, and that's one key area to watch in the weeks leading up to and following this hearing in September. Kevin Cirilli, Scripps News, Washington.
All right, Kevin, thank you so much. Still to come on Scripps News Live, debris from the Titan submersible recovered. We're going to explain what's next in the investigation. And don't forget, you can always count on Scripps News for all of your news throughout the primetime hours as well, beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll be right back.
I've been putting off getting life insurance, and I'm not getting any younger.
Have you been thinking about getting a life insurance plan but just keep putting it off? Was that a yes? Then this message is for you. I'm David Denowitz, and I know the importance of life insurance. And that's why I'm here to tell you it's not too late to get the coverage you need.
If you're between the ages of 45 and 85, you can get a policy with a benefit of up to $25,000 and rates available at $5 a week. The phone lines are now open. Just call 800-354-6059.
And your acceptance is guaranteed.
I have a pre-existing medical condition. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes.
Can I get accepted without a medical exam?
Yes. If you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down for this guaranteed acceptance life insurance regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. And rates start at just $5 a week. Remember, if you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down regardless of your health. Nothing's more important than family. So call now, pick up the phone, and get guaranteed acceptance life insurance today.
Just call 800-354-6059.
I'm 72 and on a fixed income. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes, your acceptance is guaranteed and your rate can never go up for any reason. You can't be turned down regardless of your health. There's just one simple question. Are you between 45 and 85? If you answered yes, don't wait another minute. Call now.
The call is absolutely free, and there is no obligation to enroll. Just call 800-354-6059. That's 800-354-6059.
Municipal bonds don't usually get the media coverage the stock market does. In fact, most people don't find them all that exciting. But if you're looking for the potential for consistent income that's federally tax-free, now is an excellent time to consider municipal bonds from Henyon & Walsh. If you have at least $10,000 to invest, call and talk with one of our bond specialists at 1-800-465-8465. We'll send you our exclusive bond guide, free, with details about how bonds can be an important part of your portfolio. Henyon & Walsh has specialized in fixed income and growth solutions for 30 years and offers high-quality municipal bonds from across the country. They provide the potential for regular income, are federally tax-free, and have historically low risk. Call today to request your free bond guide. 1-800-465-8465. That's 1-800-465-8465.
All right, 10 minutes after the hour right now. Welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Let's get you overseas where NATO is boosting its military presence along its eastern flank amid concerns about the instability in Russia and Belarus. This morning, Secretary General Stoltenberg confirming NATO is sending more manpower and supplies to member states that share borders with both countries. That announcement coming shortly after a meeting with the leaders of 8 NATO member countries, many expressing concerns about the security of the region following this weekend's uprising in Russia. Stoltenberg acknowledging that the Wagner Group's actions are adding to the tensions in the Baltics, but he still says that it's too early to know if the brief military takeover of one of Russia's largest southern cities has done permanent damage to Russia's stability.
On the Wagner forces, well, I think it's too early to draw any final conclusion. So what kind of consequences that will have. The mutiny, the events we saw are internal Russian matters. Then maybe we are following and monitoring what's going on very closely. We have seen that some of these forces may be deployed to Belarus. But again, I think it's too early to draw any final conclusions.
Now, in the meantime, the United States remains unwavering in its support of the Ukrainian war effort. The Pentagon announcing plans to send another $500 million in military aid, and it will include badly needed equipment for its counteroffensive, such as 30 Bradley fighting vehicles, 25 Stryker armored personnel carriers. Now, as the bloody conflict in Ukraine wages on, Ukrainian civilians have banded together to create a new method to track what's happening across the country in real time. Scripps News international correspondent Jason Bellini spoke with the co-founders of the Deep State Map.
In a small office in Kyiv, 2 young men in their early 20s work the controls of their command center, aware of the outsized impact of the tiniest of changes they make to their war map. In Ukraine, they've become, in effect, the war's scorekeepers, their map monitored by generals on both sides. In a chat window, videos and photos flow in, showing missile strikes, Russian military equipment, and other mappable, if verifiable, intel. Every day, with each village and road fought over, the lines on the 600-mile front line shift, sometimes slightly, sometimes significantly. Shaded red, territory under Russian occupation. Green, areas Ukrainian troops have liberated since the invasion began. And blue, Ukrainian gains on the battlefield, the most watched color of the counteroffensive. Both sides in the conflict and the world are watching the map's every move. In the last 30 minutes, we received more than 32,000 unique visitors to the site, Ruslan Mekula tells me. Weekly, it's millions. The intel comes from many sources: Ukrainian civilians in Russian-occupied areas, Ukrainian military units, and volunteers scouring Russian social media. In the past day, we received more than 20 unidentified videos and 27 videos identified using geolocation, says Mekula. We also received descriptions of what happened in the video. For example, enemy artillery is shelling our positions, or Ukrainian troops have shelled these positions.
Who verifies the location?
Geolocation, he says. It's verified by our team, which consists of about 100 people. 100 volunteers, all vetted for their digital forensic ability to match images to locations. Deep State doesn't pretend to be unbiased. The map reveals only enemy positions, including Russian trenches, defenses, and command headquarters. For operational security reasons, Deep State does not pinpoint Ukrainian units, only the territory they've taken. We know many people on the ground, Mikula says. We're directly told that you can show this village is liberated because the guys have just returned from battle. Any new blue territory on the map raises the spirits of absolutely everyone on the front. Sometimes, he says, Ukraine's military leadership asks Deep State to hold off on displaying certain map updates. So there would be no undue attention, he says, from Russian commanders who monitor this map. The map has become, oddly, accidentally influential. Russian units that lose territory often try to hide that from top-level commanders. The ruse, sometimes aided by Deep State delaying a map update at Ukraine's request to buy time for Ukrainian troops to harden their position. Roman Pogorely, a 23-year-old law school graduate, says he and Mikula started Deep State a few years ago as a Telegram channel for discussing mostly Russia.
Have the Russians ever tried to trick you into publishing disinformation on the map?
The information that comes to us is checked very carefully, Pogorely says. We figure out what's true and what's not. The enemy has tried to hurt us in other ways. They've tried to hack us. We've had massive cyber attacks. They originally tried blocking Russians from accessing the map, but then they found out enemy soldiers used it in a way Deep State never anticipated. We found out that there are Russian soldiers using our map to go to Ukrainian positions and surrender, Mikula says. We didn't expect that in 3 years we would be really special. We would be really unusual. And just as unusual, we're invisible in some of our work, Pogorely says, referring to a version of the map that Deep State keeps hidden from the general public. It's only available to Ukraine's military and includes additional layers of detail. It shows the front and colors it according to elevation, Mikula says. In a war, a very big role is played by who is higher. Since the counteroffensive began earlier this month, he says the only time he's not here is when he's sleeping. But the mapping never rests. New details on Russian positions and attacks coming in around the clock.
Are there commanders in the field who are using your maps to make battlefield decisions?
We have useful functionality that gives the military better situational awareness of the front, Mikula says, meaning while the top commanders use their top-secret maps, troops turn to Deep State for the bigger picture of what they're up against.
In the South, how strong are the defenses?
There are many dugouts, many concrete structures. The enemy is very well prepared for any offensive action, says Mikula, but it's worth noting that there's nothing that artillery cannot destroy. The Deep State map makers hope that as the counteroffensive continues, they'll flip a lot more red on their map to blue. Jason Bellini, Scripps News, Kyiv, Ukraine.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, smoke from wildfires burning in Canada now blanketing the Midwest. You're looking live at a picture of the sky in Detroit right now. We're going to take a closer look at the impact that it has been having on the air quality. That's after a quick break.
Welcome to the place where people go to learn about their Medicare options before they're on Medicare.
Come on in. You're turning 65 soon?
Yeah.
And you're retiring at 67?
That's the plan.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Now's the time to plan ahead. Learn about an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan from United Healthcare. And how a plan like this helps you take charge of your healthcare with lower out-of-pocket costs. Here's why. Medicare alone doesn't pay for everything. Your deductibles and copays could add up to hundreds, even thousands of dollars a year.
Everyone's a little surprised to learn that one.
Adding a Medicare supplement plan helps pay some of what Medicare doesn't. And that could mean fewer surprises and more predictable out-of-pocket costs. Call United Healthcare and ask for your free decision guide. Or talk with a licensed insurance agent or producer to learn more about plan benefits, options, and rates. Medicare supplement plans let you choose any doctor, any specialist, anywhere in the U.S. who accepts Medicare patients. You don't have to deal with any networks or referrals. This kind of plan also goes with you anywhere you travel in the country. If you're turning 65 soon or over 65 and planning to retire, find out more about the only Medicare supplement plans endorsed by AARP.
Thumbs up to that.
Remember, the time to prepare is before you go on Medicare.
Don't wait. Get started today.
Take charge of your health care. Call United Healthcare for your free decision guide and learn more about lowering your out-of-pocket Medicare costs and seeing any doctor who accepts Medicare patients.
Oh, and happy birthday or retirement in advance.
Curious about trick plays and if ever
Local hero, national champ, now he's home and expected to save it.
Hey guys, am I dreaming or can we actually win this thing?
Sure, you'll teach her how to drive a car. Then use Greenlight to power her independence with crash detection with 911 dispatch, family location sharing, and emergency SOS alerts. Invest in your best investment with Greenlight.
Sunday nights on In Real Life.
For the baby?
Yeah!
Scripps News journalists take you off the grid.
We were just a bunch of kids with a camera.
Stunts have become more specialized.
And to the heart of the story.
When the pandemic hit, the American dream kind of changed.
There were a lot of warning signs. They just didn't care.
In Real Life, Sunday at 8, 7 Central, only on Scripps News.
Nearly 500 wildfires are burning in Canada right now. In Quebec alone, there are more than 100. And then on the other side of the country, in British Columbia, there have been 94. Take a look at this. You can see the smoke just dipping into the United States on this satellite imagery. And then in Michigan, the smoke has been settling over Detroit. And heads up, because it does pose a risk to your health. Brett Cass with Scripps News Detroit has this warning and shows us why the best option right now is to stay indoors as much as possible.
A stroll along the Detroit River, a bit cloudier today. The proximity to Canada actually making the country harder to see and also making the air harder to breathe.
Yes, I can notice it. I can feel like a burning in my throat.
Some people like Dahlia Kadur are choosing to wear a mask outside as smoke blows into Michigan coming from wildfires burning across eastern Canada. She's hoping the mask filters out harmful particles.
The air quality is just really bad and I don't want that stuff in my lungs.
Very, very tiny dust particles that are smaller than a human hair. So that can get into your lungs easily, just breathing it in.
Alec Konacki is a meteorologist with the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, which issued the air quality alert. He says a low-pressure system over Ontario is bringing the smoke towards Michigan. The proximity of the fires keeping that smoke closer to the surface.
The smoke does not have the amount of time or distance to really disperse and get aloft in the upper atmosphere, so it's staying closer to the surface.
Konacki says he extended the alert through tomorrow, unclear how long the smoke will linger. It's an unusual issue for Michigan, and doctors have noticed.
Have you had any patients coming in today with some issues because of this?
We have, they've been trickling in over the last several weeks.
Dr. Devang Doshi is a pulmonologist with Corewell Health and says the air quality is some of the worst he's ever seen from wildfire smoke. He advises everyone, even those without respiratory issues, to limit time outside.
We're strongly advising people to avoid doing things that they don't have to necessarily do outside. And if you do have to go outside, using an N95 to just really protect the airway from all that particulate matter.
The kids didn't want us to come with them tonight because we're old, and they said we shouldn't be out in this.
Despite the haze of smoke, many who are otherwise healthy say they haven't noticed any issues. But those who do hope the wind shifts soon so they can breathe a bit easier.
It's weird. I don't really experience this much. This is like the first time in forever that I've ever had this.
Now, in the meantime, upper levels of the atmosphere have been carrying some of that smoke from the Canadian wildfires to Europe. In the U.S., wildfire season peaks in the summer. National correspondent Maya Rodriguez tells us about a new device that could detect fires earlier, giving fire crews a heads up when it comes to evacuation and fire prevention.
Could a new sensor powered by artificial intelligence be the difference between a small wildfire and a catastrophic one? Some government agencies and utility companies around the country are putting it to the test. Amid the evergreens of the Rockies lies Gilpin County, Colorado, a rural 150 square mile county home to nearly 6,000 people.
Ranges anywhere from about 6,000 to 9,000 feet in elevation. It is very mountainous, very inclined, a lot of trees, a lot of rocks, a lot of dirt roads.
But also little to no communications.
Gilpin County being as high as we are in elevation and with our topographical challenges, we have limited to no cell service. So even in the site we're standing right now, cell phones don't work.
Every summer, the wildfire risk here rises exponentially, presenting a potential problem for first responders, trying to pinpoint a fire location before it gets out of control. That's where a new type of wildfire sensor comes in.
If these sensors pick up any kind of smoke, any kind of heat, even with no cell signal, these sensors are able to give us that information. It allows us to understand what's going on in the backcountry before a fire becomes a raging wildfire and start evacuations early. We are seeing the demand is skyrocketing.
If there is an alert, this will actually show up on your dashboard.
Abhishek Botayed is CEO of N5 Sensors, the Rockville, Maryland company behind these wildfire sensors. They began working on them several years ago when an agency within the Department of Homeland Security reached out, looking for new technology that could detect disasters like fires or floods.
Most of us people, we kind of perceive a hazard using all of our senses. Like, we see it, we could smell it, we could see the smoke, feel the heat. It's the exact same way.
The sensors are solar powered, sending collected data through either cell service or, in the case of rural areas, through satellite signals. The sensors sit mounted on poles and detect things like smoke particles and unusual heat signatures. On average, one sensor is set up every 2 square miles.
The power of this technology is not in one sensor, it's the network.
And then artificial intelligence steps in, computing all of the data gathered by the company's network of sensors, like particulates in the air, along with weather data, like wind speed and temperature. All of that information helps the network of sensors pinpoint the location of a fire, even if it's a mile away, and then sends an alert with specific coordinates of where the fire is located.
After the AI in the cloud detects and makes a decision with high confidence that there is a fire in this community, it actually sends out an automatic text or email notification to the registered sort of customers, and that could be your local fire department, that could be your local utility, whoever bought and purchased and installed in the system.
These sensors are currently deployed in communities in 10 states, from California to Virginia and parts of Canada. And the cost?
One sensor is like price of an average smartphone.
Worth it, says Gilpin County's emergency manager.
We've already partnered with some of our utility companies up here, so they're installing the sensors on their power poles outside of what the county is doing.
A preparation here that comes as they cast a wary eye on this year's wildfire season.
As we've seen over the past couple years, the changes in our mountainous communities, it just takes one small wildfire to become a very large wildfire. The hope is that we can get early detection.
And they believe save lives and properties. Maya Rodriguez, Scripps News, Rockville, Maryland.
Well, I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Thank you so much for being with us. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. And don't forget to check us out on scripsnews.com. Plus, if you're staying with us, we have more news straight ahead. Here's what's next. Protests flaring across several suburbs in Paris after an officer allegedly shoots and kills a teen. We'll have details on the violence and where the investigation stands right now. Plus, she is fierce, she is fab, and she is only 5 years old. And it looks like she's already an expert on the catwalk. You're going to want to stick around for her story next.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete Leaf Guard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
There's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. And checking your credit score or bank statements may not be enough to alert you. That's because identity threats appear in more places than you realize. Identity thieves can use your information to open loans, transfer home titles, even commit crimes.
Someone stole my information and tried to buy a car in my name.
LifeLock monitors for threats to your identity, including ones you may miss, and alerts you if there's an issue. And if you're a victim, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All plans backed by LifeLock's $1 Million protection package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
I know LifeLock has me covered.
LifeLock, identity theft protection starts here. Call the number on your screen or visit lifelock.com/25now and use promo code 25now to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you on this Wednesday. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Let's get you caught up right now on our top headlines at this hour. Smoke from Canadian wildfires posing a health threat in the United States. Today, air quality is very unhealthy in Detroit, Chicago, and Pittsburgh. Authorities want people in those cities and others to stay indoors as much as possible. The air is especially bad right now for people with breathing problems like asthma and those who have compromised immune systems. Debris from the imploded Titan submersible returning to St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. A Canadian ship brought twisted chunks of debris to shore today. It was found on the ocean floor, roughly 1,600 feet from the Titanic shipwreck. 5 people were killed when the Titan imploded last week. No remains have been found. France is now bracing for more violent protests after a police officer shoots and kills a 17-year-old boy. It all happened during a traffic check in a Paris suburb yesterday. This fire was set at the town hall in that suburb. French authorities say 24 police officers were hurt and 40 cars torched in protests yesterday. Prosecutors are questioning the officer.
This vehicle made a first refusal to comply. Then it was blocked in the flow of traffic, where there was a new control attempt by the 2 police officers. At that time, the driver, who had first turned off the engine, restarted the vehicle, then left. It was in this context that the policeman used his firearm.
French President Emmanuel Macron has called the shooting unjustifiable. Developing right now, the Justice Department has opened a civil rights investigation into stunning claims of police brutality in Mississippi. Michael Jenkins is one of 2 black men who alleged that 5 Rankin County Sheriff's deputies forced their way into a home where they were staying back in January and then beat them using a stun gun and then even sexually assaulting them. The sheriff of Rankin County, Brian Bailey, says the deputies involved in this shocking complaint have all been fired or have voluntarily resigned. Scripps News national correspondent Tammy Eswick has more on the story, and the details, which might be disturbing to some viewers, are in the story.
This is a horrendous case. Jackson, Mississippi, right next door. It's a majority black city, in Rankin County, right there. In this case, Sheriff Brian Bailey now saying that he has fired several deputies involved in what is turning out to be an alleged case of police brutality against citizens, assaulting allegedly 2 black men. One of the victims says that deputies stuck a gun in his mouth. Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey announced the firings Tuesday, though he's not naming names, so we don't know exactly the names of those deputies. 2 men, however, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, said that last January, 6 deputies burst into their home, and they said that for 90 minutes, the deputies beat them, tased them, and assaulted them with a sex toy. Jenkins was left with injuries to his face, tongue, and jaw after the deputy, he claims, shoved a gun in his mouth. Now, in a statement, Sheriff Brian Bailey said, quote, "We understand that the alleged actions of these deputies has eroded the public trust. Rest assured that we will work diligently to restore that trust. Now, earlier this year, authorities had claimed that someone had pointed a gun at deputies during a raid at the house. The firings come after an investigation by the Associated Press that found that some of the deputies involved in this case were also linked to 4 other incidents of violence against Black men since 2019. Now, those encounters left at least 2 people dead. Justice Department says it is investigating the Sheriff's Department with its Civil Rights Division and working with the FBI to get to the bottom of this alleged abuse case. Now, we can tell you that that federal investigation started in February. And a lot of times when the federal government gets involved in these cases, something called a consent decree happens. And that basically gives the feds jurisdiction and oversight of those police departments. Back to you guys.
A U.S. Marine accused in a fatal chokehold death on a New York City subway train last month has pleaded not guilty. 24-year-old Daniel Penny accused of second-degree manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. The victim was Jordan Neely, a former Michael Jackson impersonator who witnesses say was yelling and asking for money. Penny said he acted in self-defense when he placed Neely in a chokehold, and their confrontation was all captured on video. Penny is white, Neely was black. A lawyer for Neely's family called Penny a vigilante killer. A new government report shows more than $200 billion meant to help struggling businesses during the pandemic may have been stolen. The Small Business Administration releasing the numbers yesterday, citing fraud as the main issue. The Inspector General believes possible fraudulent actors stole $136 billion from the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and $64 billion from the Paycheck Protection Program. That accounts for at least 17% of the program's revenue. Scripps News correspondent Maura Sirianni has more on this report and how the government's been responding.
It's money that was supposed to be used to help struggling Americans keep their businesses afloat during the pandemic, but the report states it was the allure of easy money that drew fraudsters to the programs. So in the report released Tuesday, it's estimated that at least 17% of the $1.2 trillion doled out by the Small Business Administration was stolen by fraudulent pandemic claims. That is an estimated $200 billion loss of federal funds, perhaps the largest amount of money ever lost by a government program. So during the initial rollout in 2020, Inspector General of the SBA, Mike Ware, noted the importance of dependable internal controls within the SBA in order to really mitigate the risk of some of this fraud. But the new report details, quote, in the rush to swiftly disperse COVID economic injury and disaster loans and PPP loans, the agency weakened or removed the controls necessary to prevent fraudsters from easily gaining access to these programs. Chairman of the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee recently telling ABC News he agrees.
A decision was made at the outset of the pandemic. Speed was the key. We're going to send the money out. We're not going to vet people. That was a bad choice.
Turning out to be a bad choice and a big mistake. Depending on which report you look at, the numbers could be even higher. A recent investigation by the Associated Press found that they estimate more than $280 billion in losses. But a senior advisor with the White House said they believe it's actually lower than that, saying, quote, significantly under $100 billion, perhaps around $40 billion, still a pretty high number. The report also stating as of last month, oversight has led to more than 1,100 indictments, 803 arrests, and more than 500 convictions, again, all stemming from pandemic-related fraud. It's good to see some people at least kind of getting justice here. A lot of those fraudsters, came from here in this country, but a lot of folks overseas actually took advantage of these programs as well. The report also indicates some of that money has been recovered between the SBA and federal investigators. They've been able to get back about $30 billion. Mara Sirianni, Scripps News, Atlanta.
All right, Maura, thank you for that. In health news at this hour, officials are reporting our country's first known locally spread malaria case in 2 decades. A new health advisory active across Florida right now after the state's health department confirmed 4 cases in Sarasota County. The department says all affected individuals received treatment and have recovered. Infected mosquitoes transmit malaria to humans, and its symptoms include fever, nausea, and vomiting.
I spend a lot of time outdoors in my garden, and I've had to be more careful using mosquito repellent, which I never used to do, and trying just to protect myself so I don't get infected.
As usual, you try not to get bitten by mosquitoes. They weren't really a problem. It's been dry most of the time lately, so it's not like we're in swarms of them. But yeah, it makes me take mosquito protection a little more seriously.
Florida was also at the center of the last malaria outbreak in the U.S. in 2003. Officials have reported 8 cases so far. Undocumented women in Tennessee having a hard time accessing affordable reproductive care. Earlier this year, the state lost funding for a program that helped cover these services. Hannah McDonald of Scripps News Nashville looks at how some immigrant families have been coping with fewer resources.
This service, this resource is a matter of life and death for so many people.
During a nationwide maternal health crisis, the state of Tennessee is putting some women in greater jeopardy, according to the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition.
The response should be to make sure that people have access to as much healthcare resources and medical resources that they need, not to try to limit that.
When Tennessee lost Title X, or federal family planning dollars, earlier this year, it reallocated money to cover the services, but only for some people. Turk claims undocumented Tennesseans were left out.
It doesn't make sense for the state to limit so many families from accessing such critical medical care.
The state lost Title X funding because it failed to mandate that any eligible person seeking basic preventive reproductive care be given information about all their options, including abortion. The money the governor shuffled around in the budget to fill the void apparently doesn't help most new Americans who might be seeking birth control, for example.
It doesn't make sense for us to want a healthy state and at the same time deprive people of the critical healthcare resources that they need to actually be healthy and thrive.
Lack of access to health care often contributes to higher rates of cervical cancer and unintended pregnancies in immigrant women, according to Planned Parenthood. In Nashville, I'm Hannah McDonald reporting.
Delay after delay, millions of airport passengers right now growing more and more frustrated with the chaos taking place at airports across the country.
They were sending us notices, it's delayed, it's delayed, it's delayed, it's delayed, it's delayed. Now it's canceled.
Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, why experts say that these delays and cancellations might only be the beginning of what could be a frustrating summer for air travel. And the dangerous riptides in the Gulf took the life of a former NFL quarterback in the prime of his life. We'll be right back.
This year, Americans will spend $41 billion on auto repairs.
That's right, billions with a B. Why is that number so high? Because cars break down. Your vehicle is going to end up in a shop like this too, and if it's no longer under warranty, you're the one who has to pay the bill, and it could cost you thousands of dollars. That is, unless you call CarShield. With a plan through CarShield, administrators will pay for those costly repairs directly to the mechanic of your choice, including dealerships. That means you get protection on major parts and systems like the engine, transmission, electrical systems, and more. Plus, 24/7 emergency services for flat or damaged tires, lockouts, dead batteries, and towing at no additional cost. And there are even rental car options to keep you on the road.
I've been a mechanic for 35 plus years now. I've seen thousands of repairs over the years. My happiest customers are the ones that come in, do have some kind of auto protection policy that's going to cover the repair that they wasn't expecting anyway. I feel great about recommending CarShield to everybody I see.
CarShield has a rich history of dependability, reliability, and success, and has been featured on leading networks like ABC, CNN, Fox News, and more. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company.
My mom told me to call CarShield, and I saved $5,000. You should always listen to your mom.
As soon as my car broke down, CarShield jumped into action, and I had my car back within days.
I've been with CarShield for close to 7 years. I have 3 vehicles covered, and I saved close to $9,000.
I called CarShield and saved over $5,000.
Yes, CarShield is a good value. Every plan through CarShield comes with a price lock guarantee, which means no matter how many repairs you need, the price you pay today will never change for as long as you cover your car.
Call now and save money with your price lock guarantee. It's not a matter of if your car will break down, but when. Call CarShield now before it's too late. Call 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264.
That's $78.29.
Oh, I've only got $50. Take out the cheese puffs and the broccoli. I mean, who likes broccoli?
I don't. Only $22.87 to go.
It would be faster with the Empower app. Empower Cash Advance gives you up to $250 instantly. No late fees, interest, or credit checks.
I've got money. Keep the cheese puffs, but leave out the broccoli.
Get Empower Cash Advance up to $250 instantly. Download the Empower app today.
Local, national, and worldwide headlines. Breaking down the day's biggest stories with live reporting from around the globe.
I'm Del Walters, and this is The Debrief.
Live tonight, starting at 6/5 Central, only on Scripps News.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. If you're planning to fly for the 4th of July holiday, you're going to want to pack some patience and be prepared to wait. That's because data from FlightAware right now shows more than 4,000 flights within, into, or out of the United States delayed or canceled, which adds to the tens of thousands of flight disruptions taking place since Saturday. Scripps News correspondent James Packard has more now on what you can expect for the holiday travel weekend and the summer months ahead.
They were sending us notices. It's delayed, it's delayed, it's delayed, it's delayed, it's delayed. Now it's canceled.
At major airports coast to coast, frustration and confusion.
It's not raining at home and it's not raining here, so I'm just confused why planes are not flying.
More than 1,500 flights canceled Tuesday, the 4th day in a row of major delays and cancellations for U.S. air travelers.
Next flight out Thursday.
The worst of the problems at New York City area airports, where the FAA warned airlines and travelers this spring of impending problems this summer as staffing shortages plague air traffic control centers in the area. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby saying that's the crux of the issue, saying the problem started Saturday when the FAA reduced arrival rates into the airline's massive hub in Newark. In an email to staff, Kirby said, as a result, we estimate that over 150,000 customers on United alone were impacted this weekend because of FAA staffing issues and their ability to manage traffic. It's not the fault of the current FAA leadership that they are in this seriously understaffed position. It's been building for a long time before they were in charge, but it is incumbent on them now to lead and take action to minimize the impact. Summer storms in the Northeast combined with those staffing issues to make a mess.
In addition to the bad weather problems, we're in the peak of the summer vacation season and we're approaching the July 4th holiday. All these flights are booked close to or completely full. So there's very little slack in terms of empty seats to accommodate people.
Indeed, the busy July 4th travel weekend is still ahead. AAA predicting an all-time record of 51 million people traveling this weekend, meaning the mess is likely not over.
I think this is a real scene setter for what we're going to see for the rest of summer. If the 4th of July is really packed, then probably the rest of summer travel is really going to be robust.
James Packard, Scripps News, Los Angeles.
So swimming has become deadly in parts of the U.S. Scripps News' Paul Crane has the details on the rip currents that have now claimed the lives of 11 people, including former NFL quarterback Ryan Mallett.
Mallett was a college star at the University of Arkansas before being drafted in 2011 in the 3rd round by the New England Patriots. He spent 7 years in the NFL with the Patriots, Houston Texans, and Baltimore Ravens. The Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department released this statement late Tuesday. First responders were called to the beach behind 775 Gulf Shore Drive in Destin around 2:12 p.m. A group of people in the water near the second sandbar had reportedly been struggling to make their way back to shore. One of the individuals, an adult male, went under, and lifeguards say he was not breathing when pulled out. Life-saving measures were immediately undertaken, but the man was pronounced deceased at the Destin Emergency Room. The deaths have spanned from Fort Morgan, Alabama to Panama City Beach, Florida, according to the National Weather Service, with high-risk conditions persisting in Walton, Bay, and Gulf counties in Florida through Tuesday. Most beaches have had red flag warnings in place for the last several days, signaling high surf or strong currents. In Panama City, double red flags have been flying since June 12th, telling swimmers that the beaches are closed. An average of 100 people die each year in rip currents, and the currents are responsible for an estimated 80% of lifeguard beach rescues, according to the United States Life-Saving Association. The New England Patriots, the team that drafted Mallett, was one of the many who took to Twitter yesterday to mourn Mallett's death. The New England Patriots are deeply saddened to learn of the sudden and unexpected passing of former quarterback Ryan Mallett, the team said on Twitter. Our thoughts are with the Mallett family, his former teammates, and all who are mourning his loss. After Mallett left pro football, he became a teacher and football coach in his native Arkansas at Whitehall High School. Mallett was 35 years old. Paul Crane, Scripps News.
Thanks, Paul. Residents in Indiana have been trying to process the lasting impact of Sunday's deadly tornado. Adam Schooms with Scripps News Indianapolis shows us a man who's been making a difference helping others, even though he has lost so much.
Just got to start over. That's all you can do.
In Bargersville,
but we'll get it done.
Memories of a life spent in a house since the late 1970s.
It's a major deal. I mean, no doubt, but it can be. Nobody got hurt.
All now scattered around his yard.
Some of the roof is all the way to Morgantown Road.
For Randall Lee,
ain't nothing compared to this. I'm telling you.
Sunday was one of the scariest moments of his life.
The window up from upstairs, it blew it out. It come down. And all the pictures on the walls come off.
The moment an EF2 tornado came crashing down on his house.
I jumped in there and closed the door and, was holding the door tight as I could. And then within a minute, it was over with.
And in that minute, everything he worked for in this garage was gone.
60% of my time's in that garage.
And in that garage was memories of a life he built from the ground up.
That's a 76 Cadillac.
And in time, Lee, a veteran of this community.
Well, I was in the Navy, and of course we was in Vietnam.
Would take his heart of service and pour it into his community.
He'd help anybody, do anything for anybody. If they needed work on their car, he would do it, and he wouldn't even do it for money.
And Lee has spent the last few days trying to hold on to what is left.
You think you'll be able to work on those cars anytime soon?
No, I won't have no place to work on them.
While his family remembers the time they spent together.
Just everything my parents ever worked for is gone, like a matter of minutes.
Lee and his family are still undecided on what is next.
That's down the road, but we'll get it done.
Until now, Lee and his family will keep working.
It's unbelievable. There's something within a minute could do this.
And that was Adam Schooms reporting there for us. Coming up next, this 5-year-old model capturing audiences all across the globe. And while she might be small, she's not shying away from some pretty big dreams.
I want to be a top model. I want to be everything.
Oh, we're going to introduce you to this pint-sized inspiration after a quick break.
I've been putting off getting life insurance, and I'm not getting any younger.
Have you been thinking about getting a life insurance plan but just keep putting it off? Was that a yes? Then this message is for you. I'm David Denowitz, and I know the importance of life insurance. And that's why I'm here to tell you it's not too late to get the coverage you need.
If you're between the ages of 45 and 85, you can get a policy with a benefit of up to $25,000 and rates available at $5 a week. The phone lines are now open. Just call 800-354-6059.
And your acceptance is guaranteed.
I have a pre-existing medical condition. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes.
Can I get accepted without a medical exam?
Yes. If you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down for this guaranteed acceptance life insurance regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. And rates start at just $5 a week. Remember, if you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down regardless of your health. Nothing's more important than family. So call now, pick up the phone, and get guaranteed acceptance life insurance today.
Just call 800-354-6059.
I'm 72 and on a fixed income. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes, your acceptance is guaranteed and your rate can never go up for any reason. You can't be turned down regardless of your health. There's just one simple question. Are you between 45 and 85? If you answered yes, don't wait another minute. Call now.
The call is absolutely free, and there is no obligation to enroll. Just call 800-354-6059. That's 800-354-6059.
A better banking app is right at your fingertips. Download Dave, and you can get up to $500 instantly, right through your phone. There's no interest, no credit checks, and no late fees. Because getting help shouldn't set you back. Ditch the big banks and trust the bear to get up to $500 instantly. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com today.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
You're watching Scripps News. Streaming everywhere, totally free. Want to see more? Grab the app on your favorite streaming platform or go to scripsnews.com to find every way to watch. Go to scripsnews.com now to find out more.
All right, I'd like to introduce you to Amia Brock. She is this tiny beauty who's been making waves in the fashion industry, walking on some of the most famous runways in the world. And get this, she is just 5 years old. Alexandra Bahu of Scripps News Detroit shows us how this little girl has become quite a big inspiration for so many.
She's 5, she's fierce, and her supermodeling skills are garnering her some big attention. Let's go meet her. In many ways, Amia Brock is like any typical 5-year-old.
I love to play outside on the trampoline.
But she's also got that presence.
I call her Mimi the top model.
Amia's grandmother, Lisa Hicks, says her granddaughter caught the modeling bug at just 4 years old.
No practice, no teaching. Mimi got on that runway and stole the show. We were so proud. So we saw at that time that she was a natural. And from there, someone booked her from that show, and it's been a snowball effect ever since. She has been invited to New York Fashion Week. She's been invited to Milan. She's been invited to Chicago. She was invited to the Washington Fashion Week.
For Amia, performing, especially on the runway, is an art she seems to already have down to a science.
So I walk first, turn around, and then pose, 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 and then turn back around.
When I see my little grandbaby on the walkway, it's just like, oh my God. Even if we're in the audience, Mimi is so focused on what she's doing. If I be, Mimi, she will not even look at me.
In fact, Amia is so focused on what she does, I thought she could, give me a few pointers. Okay, what do I need to work on?
So you need to work on stop bouncing.
Oh, stop bouncing. Okay, good.
You you know how you normal walk?
Yep.
But walk slow or fast.
Slowly, okay.
But pose.
So while she may be little, she's not shying away from those big career dreams.
I want to be a top model. I want to be everything.
Oh, she is everything. She's just too cute. And that was Alexandra Bahu reporting there for us. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. And remember, you can